Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something absolutely fascinating, the incredible ways human creation actually helps us survive. And I mean that in a couple of different ways, whether it's weathering the relentless winds of technological change over centuries, or surviving the very literal physical storms of life.
Here is our quick roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 5 main stops. First, the origin and evolution. Second, geographical identity. Third, surviving technological change. Fourth, Johnsey's fading hope. And finally, number 5, the masterpiece.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the origin and evolution tracing the Punkah.
So the story of the traditional Indian hand fan actually begins with just a single simple word, Punkah. And this term originates directly from the word punk, which literally translates to a bird's feather. It's such a natural, vivid image, right? It just perfectly captures that light, fluttering essence of what a fan is supposed to be.
But you have to realize, these traditional fans are so much more than just a quick way to beat the heat. They have a massive, incredible historical footprint. We can actually trace evidence of the Punki all the way back to the 2nd century CE. They famously show up in those breathtaking Buddhist wall paintings at Ajanta. And throughout ancient times, they held these highly sacred, elevated roles. We're talking about fans being used in temples for fanning deities, and later on fanning kings in grand royal courts. The scale was wild, too. Some were just tiny, delicate 2-inch things, while others were so massive they literally required a person's entire arm strength just to swing them back and forth.
Moving right along to Section 2, geographical identity, the craft of the Punkah.
Now, what is really cool here is how the Punkah didn't just stay one thing. It evolved into entirely distinct art forms depending on exactly where it was made, completely reflecting the local environment. Just look at Rajasthan, for instance. They use this luxurious Zardozi with encrusted gold threadwork, crafting heavy brass fans for temples. It's incredibly opulent. Then you contrast that with Gujarat, which is known for much lighter, pure cotton-based fans that are embellished with these delicate little mirrors. And meanwhile, tribal communities adapted the craft using whatever native materials were right there in their surroundings, weaving bamboo, cane, and grass into these stunning, complex geometrical patterns.
This brings us to Section 3, surviving technological change, the modern shift.
So, we have to ask ourselves the big question, what actually happens to these beautifully crafted, super functional items when modern technology rolls in and just makes them functionally obsolete? I mean, with the advent of modern tech, the traditional Punkah was at a very real risk of fading away entirely, but it survived. And the way it did this was by completely transforming from an everyday cooling tool into a decorative cultural artifact. Today, they're celebrated as traditional craft items, totally preserving the cultural core of the regions that still meticulously make them.
The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that cultural survival requires adaptation. Our source text points out that, with time and the advent of technology and innovative creations, the entire culture of Punkahs was in danger of disappearing. But it was human innovation, the sheer, stubborn dedication of industrious artisans that actually kept the heritage alive. Now, this whole idea of innovative creation stepping in to preserve something vital, that is the perfect bridge to our next chapter. Because we're about to look at a classic story where a totally different kind of human creation literally steps in to save a life.
Let's dive into Section 4, Johnsey's fading hope, the storm of November.
Okay, we are shifting gears to a classic, and honestly, a much darker story. Picture this. It's a bleak, freezing November, and a severe pneumonia outbreak is just sweeping through the city. A young woman named Johnsey falls gravely ill. But here's the thing. The real danger isn't just the sickness itself, it's that she completely loses her spirit. The visiting doctor ends up pulling her friend's suicide to deliver a really grim reality. He tells her Johnsey has simply made up her mind that she is not going to get well. And tragically, because she's given up, it renders all of his medical treatments completely useless. For the medicine to work, she has to actually want to survive.
Her friend Sue tries desperately to lift her spirits, chatting about clothes and fashion, trying to bring some normalcy back. But Johnsey just lies there, completely still in her bed, staring blankly out the window. And then suddenly, Sue hears her whispering. Johnsey has actually started this morbid countdown. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. She's watching the fierce autumn wind outside violently tear the leaves off an old, decaying ivy creeper that's climbing up the brick wall right opposite their window.
She turns and tells her desperate friend exactly what she thinks is going to happen. She says that when the very last leaf falls from that dying vine, she is going to yield to her illness and pass away. She's just tired of waiting, and she wants to go away peacefully, just like one of those poor, tired leaves falling to the ground.
Which brings us to our final act, Section 5, the masterpiece, the last leaf.
Sue is understandably terrified by this, so she runs down and confides in their downstairs neighbor, this old, gruff artist named Berman. She tells him all about Jauncey's dark conviction, and she does this right as a terrifying, icy cold storm with heavy rain and fierce winds rolls in for the night. Down to her bones, Jauncey is absolutely certain that this last leaf will fall in the storm, and with it, her life will end. So, we're left with this burning question. How in the world can a single, fragile little leaf possibly survive such a violent storm?
Well, Jauncey wakes up the next morning and, in this feeble little voice, she demands that the curtains be drawn open. Sue reluctantly does it, totally bracing herself for the worst. But against all odds, the morning light reveals one lone, green, healthy leaf still clinging to the vine. In spite of all that relentless wind and the freezing rain, it didn't fall. And seeing this completely impossible resilience sparks something really profound inside Jauncey. She suddenly realizes that it's a sin to want to die. The sheer survival of that one little leaf finally gives her the hope and the will she desperately needs to recover from her illness.
So Jauncey survives. The doctor even confirms that she now has the will to live and is definitely going to recover. But a tragic twist unfolds downstairs. The doctor mentions offhand that he has to go check on Behrman, who has also caught pneumonia and is entirely without hope, which makes us stop and ask, what exactly happened to the old artist during that violent storm?
And this brings us to the heartbreaking yet incredibly powerful conclusion. Mr. Behrman died of pneumonia after just 2 days of being ill. The janitor had found him in his room in wet clothes and shoes, just shivering and freezing cold. It turns out, Behrman had secretly gone out into the freezing rain the night of the storm, bringing a lantern and his brushes. Why? Because he went out to paint that final, permanent leaf under the brick wall. It was his ultimate masterpiece. It was a work of pure human creation that literally cost him his own life, but it gave Jauncey the exact hope she needed to save hers.
So whether it's generations of industrious artisans meticulously crafting a panca to preserve their heritage against the harsh winds of technological change, or an old painter sacrificing himself to create a single perfect leaf on a brick wall to save a young girl, human creation is just this incredibly powerful force of survival. It anchors us. So I'll leave you with this to think about. How do acts of creation in your own life help you weather the storms that you face? And what masterpieces might you leave behind to give hope to others?